Welcome to Absolutely PlayStation and Steam Gamers. My name's Benny, and that is Dylan, and I just spit on my screen. Here, let's get rid of that. There we go. And over there in the other corner is Dan.
Hello.
I'll give you your real name, Dylan, so people can actually learn who you are, as opposed to always being long-haired guy.
Fair.
This is a extension of our PSG podcast. Every Friday, we get together and talk about the gaming news that we found interesting. And today, we've got a few of those to talk about, so we decided to invite Dan to join us. Hi, Dan.
Hello.
Tell us a little about yourself.
I like tea. That's a little about myself. You didn't say
You're
how
also
much.
on Absolutely Marvel.
Oh
in
yes,
DC.
I'm also a part of
historian.
the company. The producer, actually, I help run things. But also, I like tea. So
You also do your own streams on the side. You've never been a guest on anything, Dan?
no, not really. I'm Dan T, producer, aka Silent91 on Twitch. I stream Apex every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Twitch.tv/Silent91. I also work with Benny over at Comic Storian, as well as Benny and Dylan at Marvel, Absolutely Marvel and DC, where we talk about different shows, all of that good stuff. But today I was randomly pulled on, and they said, "Hey Dan, you want to talk about gaming news?" And I was like, "You know what? Sure. I'm already sitting at my computer. Why not?"
It was we just did our Flash review.
Yes.
And it was like, well, Dad, you're here. You want to just be our third instead of you having to go drum up Houston or somebody? So, all right. So since this is the news podcast, we're going to roll to the news. Our first topic, I'm going to get it out of the way to hurry because I just want to get their opinions on it. But Shank and I are going to do a much deeper discussion of the season of the Splicer for Destiny and discuss more in-depth the Transmog system. So for the last couple of weeks, we've discussed the plans that Destiny had for their Transmog system and how they were going to monetize it. It is even worse than everyone thought. So the way the game's system works, it's difficult because on one hand, I understand why they did it. On the other hand, I 100% completely disagree. They should never have done any of this. I get the argument to do it, but the reason they've done it, this is the two things. They make most of their money selling costumes in the Eververse. And their concern as a company was by giving you the ability to transmog your equipment onto your characters, you would never use the Eververse again. So they found a way to put that into the Eververse, which is their microtransactions store. So you have to pay for the ability to make transmogs. So the way that it works is you have to go and farm up 150 of one resource. You turn this resource into a secondary resource, which then gets turned into a third resource. There's questing and bounties you have to do along the whole line. So this process is not short. That will give you one transmog slot. You then have the ability to pick one piece of gear from your inventory and turn it into an ornament, which is their transmog. So it turns it into the things like the Eververse costumes. Okay. Now the problem with this is the grind is insane. Or you could spend $10 to skip it all and just get 5 slots to transform into outfits. The grind is so insane that one of the more revered and respected individuals in the gaming news circuit, SkillUp, did 3 characters, every pinnacle, which is like the weekly goals to level up your character. He did every weekly goal on 3 characters, got to battle pass level like 31, and did a bunch of miscellaneous things, and only has like 2 complete sets of that done through the grind.
Oh boy.
Yes. So they've made the grind insane. I am right now adamantly against spending money on it, and I have already been in like 1 or 2 spots where I'm like, I could just buy one and just be done with it and not grind all this up. You know what I mean? Because the grind's not even interesting. It's a lot of older content too. So it's not even like, go grind the new thing, and you're like, well, I'll just get it over time as I'm doing this.
Right.
So the issue is that this has become, now, I understand why they've done it on one hand. They're a terrible game at giving you rewards, so there actually isn't that much armor to transmog. Like,
That's fair.
The game has been around for like 5 to 7 years or something like that at this point, and I'm looking at my inventory of equipment that I've acquired, and I'm like, so I have like 30 pieces of armor over the course of like 5 years, which sounds like a lot, but that's over the course of like 5 years.
Yeah, that's very low.
Yeah. 30 pieces for each slot. So like grand total, if I were to buy my way to all of these, $300, and I would have my whole collection transmogged. Like,
good Lord, that's too much.
But $300 so that I can wear outfits in my game that I've technically already unlocked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't understand. Like the relation that I have to this is Star Wars: The Old Republic when they implemented their costume system. Basically, I don't remember what it's called, but there was a microtransaction element to it as well. But it was to buy. It was $1 to buy. I believe it was any outfit, entire outfit slots past 5. You got 5 of them for free, so you could design entire outfits that would glamour your over your whole actual gear. It might have been 3. I don't remember the specific number, but the point is after that it was $1 or $2 per entire slot after that.
Yeah, and that's what I'm used to. You buy outfit slots. I've got ESO. I have 7 slots because I have different outfits and I bought each slot. But you could just constantly change out the one slot. No, this one is individual pieces of armor. Instead of just having slot loadouts and selling that. Right. So it's individual pieces of armor and you get 5 per thing, and that's the problem. And that's why everyone's freaking out, because the grind is insane. The grind is to a next level to just wear a costume. And it's or you could just pay money, and it's just kind of ridiculous. There's so many other ways they could have monetized the transmog, selling you slots, selling you a subscription with some minor buffs and stuff like that, and you get slots as long as you're paying. That's another one you see a lot of going on. I get the worst part is this is probably just going to roll by and no one's going to care. They're probably going to have their biggest Eververse sales in the area, and that's something we're actually going to talk about real soon in this particular podcast because of the changes coming to the markets. But I wanted to get your guys' opinions on that real quick because it is in the headlines. We will do a much more in-depth discussion with Destiny-centric players because Dan's messed with it because he plays with me. Dylan doesn't even play Destiny, so it's kind of hard to have a full opinion on this whole situation.
Yeah, that sounds ridiculous. Is this a one-time transmog? If you unlock the chest piece, you can change it once? Or is this you can constantly swap through, or...
They gave me freebies. They gave me some freebies to test the system out.
Okay.
And I unlocked a lot of my favorite armor through that right off the bat. So that's why at this point I'm I don't even think I'm going to buy any because I did all the ones I want. I'm not a big transmog guy, so it's I got the set, and that's what I'm wearing for the next 5 years of this game. But once you've unlocked the piece, you can use it on any piece anywhere. So I have a piece from PvP. I unlocked that piece. I can now put it on any body piece I have.
So it's basically you're turning a piece of gear into a glamour piece.
Yes.
So the whole grind is so if you have a chest armor, you do this entire grind to turn that chest armor into glamour.
Yes, that can go on anything.
Yeah.
And you have to do the full grind for each piece?
Yes.
You have to do the full grind for each piece, basically. You can pick any piece. It's a currency, but it boils down to you grind one whole thing for one piece.
That's...
Now, the $10, is that per piece as well, or you get multiple
5.
for that $10? You get 5 for that $10. So it's
individually they're $3 a pop, or you can buy a bundle of 10 of them.
$3. That's insane. That's nuts. That's
or you buy a bundle of 5 of them for $10.
The Old Republic, you get your entire outfit for $3.
Yeah.
One piece of armor?
That is ridiculous. Yeah, because you get half of the gear in that game, you have to have at least 2 or 3 pieces for it to look good together.
Right.
That's
penny pinching, at its most egregious.
That
it's
alone
terrible. The other
just
thing
makes
that they
me not
changed
really
was
want to get back in.
What's that?
I said that alone is kind of making me go, do I really want to get back?
It's an optional system. You can completely avoid it. Just say I'm not bothering with this. I'm probably gonna, now that I've made a couple sets with the freebies, I don't think I'm messing with it again.
But it's still the principle of the matter of if they're willing to do that on this one area of the game, where is it gonna stop?
It feels icky. Because it's the game's charging me for that? Because there's also, and this is a leak, so there's no evidence on this one, but right now there is a shader, which is how you color your skins, that you can unlock by beating the new raid that drops next Saturday. And apparently in the tooltip for that shader, it says, once you defeat Vault of Glass, you can buy this from the Eververse. So now they're also, in theory, monetizing your rewards from doing the content.
Are you
in theory, though, I want that to be
Okay.
Until it
Not
drops,
better.
we don't know officially,
Yeah.
but still.
That's rough. That's such a slap in the face. Here, congratulations. You can now you have the ability to give me $5 now. What?
It's like you just defeated this raid. We've unlocked a page of our store for you. Congratulations.
Oh, that
I mean,
sucks.
I buy their physical trophies that you get for doing things. I have a shelf of them over here. Because
they're trophies. They're a physical thing.
That's a physical thing. You're sending me a replica gun.
That's fine.
Or like a plaque. Like, I like this stuff, but
I like my shirt. Yeah, because like I can't remember what season it was, but we unlocked a shirt that like I even have like my name on it. Like,
Yeah,
I
that's
was
cool.
very happy to spend like I don't know, I want to say it was like $60 to get that
it was
shirt.
a little
and it was-
expensive.
it was
the trophies are a little
expensive.
expensive, but
Yeah, it was expensive, but it's still like, look at this thing that I earned to get, as opposed to, hey, check it out. This gear, it looks like this gear because I spent $10. I could just be wearing that set of gear and just upgrade it, but no, I made
Yeah.
it look like this gear. And it's like,
So I don't want to harp on this for too long until this is the newscast, because we're going to do a whole episode on the season and all this stuff with Shank, and we'll have a little bit more into it. But I wanted to, because it's a hot topic, I wanted to throw it at you guys, see what you thought. It just, to me, it feels dirty. I get on to play Destiny, and I'm like, I'll just ignore it. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, they're trying to nickel and dime the player base. Where will it end?
Yeah.
And that
That's a
actually leads to a
slippery
discussion
slope.
involving Ubisoft later, which is why I wanted to discuss this. But let's just roll into that stuff, that discussion now, because they link together. How's that
Okay.
sound? So Ubisoft has announced in their earnings call they're going to be going away from doing as many AAA titles, they were aiming for 4 to 5 a year, to doing more free-to-play live service things.
okay.
Which I find funny because most of their live service games, they're pretty mediocre. Division 2, fun game, but nothing holds me. They have a lot of games like that, Ubisoft. Like, once you beat the main game, you're just kind of there. You know what I mean? So I find it funny they want to do more of this kind of a thing. How do you guys feel about one of the biggest publishers leaning away from doing AAA titles as frequently?
So so let me just understand this correctly. Are we talking like they're going to be going to different games, or are we talking in a world where they would be making the Division 2, it would be free for people, but you would pay for stuff in the game as a live service?
It sounds like we're leaning towards that. So
'Cause
there have
that
been
actually is
leaks
okay
for a
to me.
while that the next Assassin's Creed, we're getting 2 of them, one of which will be a remake of the first game with Altair.
I will play that.
And the other one's going to be a free-to-play live service style game set in China.
I think it's smart. Honestly, I think that's a smart way to do it because I feel like the thing that holds back a lot of live service games is that initial pay to get into the game.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the time I'm going to use Division 2 as an example of it was fun. You get in, you have fun, you get to the end of the game. But the problem was you would get to the end of the game and then tell your friend, hey, this game's super fun. You got to spend $60 to get in and then level up to get to the point where I'm at so that we can then do stuff when it finally comes out. But if it's free from the get-go, I feel like you have more players, more player base getting in, progressing at the same rate, making the live service progression and additions more universally accessible.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that was always the problem with the live service when it was the new expansion. So if you wanted your friend to get in, they had to buy the original, buy the expansion, get through all the original, get through the expansion, and by the time they get there, you're already worn out or you've got everything, and they don't care. And I feel
Well,
like
that was the original problem with Destiny. It was like $300 to get into Destiny at one point before they went all Eververse on us.
Exactly. And so I feel like if it's a free game that has the microtransactions inside, I feel like that's more okay because it allows everyone to enjoy this game. And if you do want to spend a little extra money, go for it. It's basically turning them into app games. And we all have, I mean, like Benny and myself, like we both play app games. Benny spends more money in some of the games than I do, but we can still, because it's free, we can still progress at the same rate. You just get some cooler stuff because you can spend the money, and that's totally fine, and you support the developers and stuff like that. But everyone gets to play it, and I feel like moving in that free-to-play direction and kind of going off of that, app games have shown it can work, and I think it could be really good, to be honest.
I feel like the reason we're leaning towards this is because of app games. App games make a crap ton of money, but there's still that connotation of it's on a phone. It's not a real game. And I've been adamant about like I love people that like to argue about Genshin. I just saw a tweet the other day which it relates to this, which is hilarious. They announced the sequel to Nier. It's the next one in the actual chronological series, Nier Reincarnation, which is an app game. And someone responded with, I'm not going to play any app games. That's going to ruin the Nier franchise. The person who responded had a picture of a Genshin character. So someone responded to that with, you can't talk, you're playing Genshin. What do you mean you hate app games? And he goes, well, it's not an app game. I play it on my computer. And I feel like that's the excuse a lot of people use with games like Genshin or even some of the Honkai Impact. Oh, I play it on the computer. It's not an app game. It's still an app game.
Yeah, I mean, they're really, like, the term app game has kind of been misconstrued because it used to mean one thing, but now it really just means live service game. Like, app games got to live service before, like, really, like, with the exception of, like, MMOs and stuff, like actual, like console or PC sit down and play games, not mobile handheld games. Like, I feel like the term app game is kind of dated at this point just because it kind of means the same thing as live service in the way that it's used, but is, like an app game being an app on a smartphone does not make it an app game, technically, in the way that language has been using that term in recent years.
It's funny because like people consider anything they consider app game, like everyone still considers app games to be that 2012 model where it literally is like, pay your way to the end of the game. Why aren't you doing it?
People see it as the original Candy Crush.
Yeah.
As just the do nothing, you can spend money to go like play more, but at the end of the game it's Bejeweled, and like that's what people look. But
I mean, people don't realize this, but Windows considers anything on your computer at this point an app. If you actually go to the Windows store, you're installing
applications.
Yeah.
Like program, applicate, like they're all the same word. They just mean, it's just the word app has been like commodified to mean like the program that you put on a smartphone specifically. And as smartphones have just kind of evolved to be little mini computers, it's when you can play stuff like Final Fantasy VII on your phone. Is Final Fantasy VII now an app game?
Well, the new one's going to have microtransactions, but we'll talk about that another time when we hear more about it.
Sure, but like that's just saying like the genre that has like changed where they've kind of converged.
You can download the classic Pokemons, can't you? I think Dan did it. Like
not legally.
You can get emulators and stuff, but
yeah.
But does that make it an app game? I mean, that's a great argument. Like now we're getting older games ported to it. You can. I think the original Doom's on here. Like you can play older games and just pay an upfront cost. Is that an app game, or like you're right? I never even thought about it like that, but all the classic Final Fantasies are on there.
All the Dragon Quests, like you can buy Dragon Quest V for like $30 on the Google Play Store, and it's like it's a full game, but by people's definition of app game, because I download it on my phone, it's now an app game.
Yeah,
and people also do forget, like Benny said, they are small computers. Phones cost more than consoles. They cost more than computers.
I can buy
like this.
I could buy a laptop for more money than this.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is more powerful than my Switch.
No,
Yes.
I can get a laptop for like $400 that will play some games. And this, you're right. This is more powerful than the Switch. This promotes 4K applications. I'm showing Final Fantasy with the visuals right now, but
like suddenly you put like if I'm playing Final Fantasy VII on my iPhone and I have a controller attached to it, like does that not make it? Does that make it somehow way different than if you were playing like Epic 7 or whatever? Like it's just the term is like meaningless now. We need to just start.
So what that basically
classifying them as
boils
live
down
service.
to, though, that boils down to the actual discussion, though. If Ubisoft is moving towards the less AAA titles, they didn't say they're not doing them, but less AAA titles that are like Valhalla and Far Cry and things like that, and they're going more in the free-to-play realm, more live service realm, more Battle Pass realm. The companies are making more and more app games. Square Enix has Near Reincarnation. The full Final Fantasy VII compilation is coming out as a phone game, or like an app game, basically, that you can play on your tablet. I'll play it on my tablet. I've literally got 3 app games going right now. Like, and now games like Bungie's Destiny, are charging for their transmog. The gaming industry is shifting further and further away from, I'll even go with a recent game, the God of War model. You buy a game, you pay $60, you sit down, you play it, you're done.
Yeah.
I mean, even Resident Evil Village. Resident Evil Village came attached with a microtransaction-heavy multiplayer game. If you buy Village, they made a game that will download with it that is called RE-Verse, which got delayed, but that doesn't change the fact they were literally like, here's your big story game, and here's our microtransaction push. Like,
yeah. I think it's just, I don't mind it, especially with a company like Ubisoft, where their kind of thing for a long time has just been, we release games annually in the same series with changes to them, whether that be like a setting change or like a lot of the Assassin's Creeds. Like, I feel like you can look at them, especially like early on, just as kind of incremental like expansions on the previous game. Going live service like makes a lot of sense for a lot of their franchises.
yeah.
And it is an interesting move when they just recently decided that they're going to not do annual stuff anymore, like in the past few years, where they've decided to start taking more time with each game.
Well, but it lines up. They were probably planning this for a while. It just didn't say anything. Right.
And I think that makes a ton of sense. Like, because like even the single player games like the more recent Assassin's Creed games have had live service elements to them. So
yeah,
it's
a constant argument right now because
sense.
Valhalla keeps putting out new costumes, and they're like, "Well, this is a costume that already existed in Odyssey." The latest argument that I've seen, because every YouTuber loves to get that hate bait where it's like, "Guys, let's hate on Assassin's Creed." Assassin's Creed is taking costumes that existed in Odyssey and charging you again to have them in Valhalla. I don't see a problem with that. It's like they're just
That's a collab with your own game.
Well, it's not even a collab. They're just reusing the same skins and they're charging for the new game. Or like, it's a new game. You shouldn't get it for free because you bought it in Odyssey. Go play Odyssey, wear it there. And if you don't want it in Valhalla, don't buy it in Valhalla. Like, why is this a debate? Like,
and I think this, like, if they brought Assassin's Creed to live service, it would solve issues like that. Because, like, imagine they just come out next year or the year after or whatever, and the next couple of years, they come out with a game that's just like, it's Assassin's Creed. They just call it Assassin's Creed. And you buy it for $60 and it comes with it comes with like Odyssey, Valhalla, whatever the other one is.
Origins.
It comes with those packaged in there with like a unified like costume system and stuff, since they're all same engine, similar gameplay. And then a year goes by, 2 years go by, a new Assassin's Creed comes out, but you're not buying a new Assassin's Creed, you're buying an expansion that has an entire new world, an entire new story, and also you have all of your stuff that you already have in the previous games, and it's a live service, it's just adding on to it. That would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you said that, because that was actually a point that I was going to go into, that like live service, the benefit that those kind of games have is people feel like their accomplishments are gonna last longer and mean more, because I feel like a lot of people, and myself included, with some games, I'll look at it and I'll go, well, I could play that game that's entirely single player, it's not gonna get any additions, and I'll get to a point where I'm like, I've got everything. And then when the next one comes out, I'll be like, and I've got nothing. But like, if I were to know, oh, I've got everything, but when this expansion comes out, this thing that I have created and kind of really grown, it's not getting tossed aside, it's getting continued. That's honestly one reason why I always liked MMOs, was because you truly felt like you had something that you had accomplished that you could show proof of, even if like the things were like, oh, well, now you're not going to use it anymore. You could still say, yes, but hey, you guys that weren't playing during this time, check out this cool thing I got during that time. And I feel like it's not just oh, well, it was in that other game that no one plays anymore and no one could see, and so it doesn't feel as big of an achievement.
Right. I think we're hitting a weird point with gaming in general. Gaming is the biggest entertainment industry out there, and they're all trying to find new ways to monetize and pay for everything. And it's an expensive industry to be a part of, and you got to make the billions to be useful. We're in an industry where they look at things like 2 million Tomb Raider sold, not as popular as we thought it was going to be. What do you mean? You have 2 million copies of Tomb Raider sold. And I feel like they're trying to find ways to nickel and dime, but not push it too far. I feel like things like Destiny are really pushing that boundary, but I feel like we're going to go more in the direction of Destiny because I feel like the gaming industry looks at this. Dan, on your way to work, you buy a $5 coffee every day and you consume that, and you don't consider daily coffees to be a waste. You consider, I've consumed my coffee, I will buy another coffee. And I think that's how they're looking at a lot of this content. Dylan, you have consumed your content, time to buy new content to play your games with. It's no different than getting a coffee and things like that. And I feel like that's kind of how they look at, like, if you go back to the argument of, oh, you should get free upgrades. And if you bought it before, it should be free. It should be free forever. Like with the costumes in Odyssey. I bought it in Odyssey, it should be free in Valhalla. No, you consumed it in Odyssey.
Yeah.
$10 more, you get it in Valhalla, or you don't get it. I mean, you don't go to the coffee shop and be like, well, I bought this cup, Starbucks, for $3.99. Refill it.
And I kind of get like where they're coming from with like buying one costume in a different game and then it's in another game, and like
I get the argument. I do.
The frustration there.
Yeah, because I feel like that frustration is the same frustration as like, well, I bought this on PS4. Why don't I get the PS5 copy for free? And it's like, well, they still need to make money. You think it was free for them to port it? Like, and then you get. I like what Square Enix is doing for that, where they're like, look, 7. If you want to play 7 on 4 and 5, it's free. If you want the extra things we made, it's a part of the PS5 bundle, so you gotta buy it again. Like, I think that's a good way to do it. Add more value to reselling me the same game.
I think Benny's actually, your Starbucks comparison gave me a great analogy to go with of they're essentially moving from a model of you buy a coffee and then the next day you've got to buy another coffee, which you could get from any store, but instead they're selling you a refillable cup where you can go in and you can get your coffee for cheaper, but it makes you go to that same coffee place.
Yeah.
And I think that is kind of a great example of what live service is and why it's a great model. It keeps people coming back to you because they've paid that initial bit and now it's just small increments, but you get it cheaper. You get the same thing, but you get it cheaper.
I mean, Destiny, Division, they all do that. It's like the situation of like, oh, I've been with Destiny for 5 years, and while this system is really shitty, I'm going to play the season. My favorite argument was when I hit up Shank. We were talking about Destiny, and I'm like, dude, this stuff sounds so shitty. I kind of want to boycott and leave the game finally, but I'm worried I'll miss something and want to come back. And his response was, yeah, I see what you mean, but I still want to do the story and the raid. And it's like, that's the season. You want to do the game, Shank. And that's what they're hoping for. That's why they do these shitty moves.
Yeah.
Speaking of live service, do we want to move into the Avengers news for this week?
If it's so minor that it doesn't need to be an episode, yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, it's...
So, long story short, I'll explain that to how we got to this. So technically, I'm an Avengers ambassador, so I have access to all this information before anyone else. Dylan hits me up and he goes...
usually.
Day before usually. It's not too early, but Dylan's like, hey, Benny, did you get the info on Avengers? And I went, what? And he goes, yeah, they did a private meeting with the ambassadors. And I went, what? And I thought maybe I was kicked or something. And I looked at it. I'm like, oh, I got an invite right here. And that was like 3 hours ago.
Yeah, I saw like another like content creator was like commenting on the subreddit or something that was like, yeah, they showed us some more stuff. I'm interested. And they came out with it, and basically what they showed off was the new post-level cap progression. So for those that don't know, in Avengers, each superhero has a level cap of 50, and once you gain experience past level 50, it doesn't do anything. So now they have integrated a system called champion levels, which basically is just more levels, and it caps at 355 or something, or 375, something like that.
Is Diablo Paragon leveling?
Yeah, that's what it sounds like to me when you explained it.
Okay.
I think I've heard a lot of comparisons. It's kind of underwhelming. It basically is just once you level up past level 50, you get a champion skill point, and you can then drop that champion skill point into 4 champion skill trees, but they're all just like different tiers of, here's a 2% increase to your health, here's like 2% more crit chance, like stuff like that.
They had that in Elder Scrolls Online.
Yeah.
So that system will carry over to every new character. So I can level up one character, max out everything. Like I'm actually like Paragon like 800 something in ESO. Like that's how many additional skill points I have. And every time I make a new character, I'm still Paragon 800. I'm still that level. But my new character can get additional things, and that's
Right.
So it sounds like they're just taking what a lot of other games do to keep you around. Because games like ESO that do it, you do hit a wall of like, well, I did the story, I did the raid. See you next time.
There are a lot of people complaining about like they wanted something more, like they wanted more skills to unlock post level 50, or like more intense changes, which I don't really agree with, just because there's already a lot of variance in the skill trees on each character anyway, and there has to be a level cap for new skills at some point.
Yeah.
Right.
Otherwise, you're just going to completely muddy the character, and you're going to have like 2 entirely different characters in your one like class, basically. So I'm fine with this. I find it a little strange that this is like the first substantial piece of content that we're getting post like Hawkeye, because like this isn't really anything that I was asking for, or I don't think most people were asking for.
Well, I think people were
grind.
asking for more substantial things to do with a capped out character, because instead of giving us something to do, they're like, well, you can grind more.
Right, exactly. Because
and my biggest complaint about this, as someone who is slightly biased, because I literally have Avengers merch all over the place, so far nothing that Avengers has done to me is unique. It's taken from another game and they've retooled it to work in Avengers. Either better or worse, nothing they've done has been unique enough to make me be like, well, I can only do this in Avengers. I gotta go play Avengers. Because like Paragon, I just literally Diablo, ESO, numerous other games I've done that.
I will say I disagree slightly. The thing that keeps me coming back to the game just to play is, I think the in this sector, like a live service game of this type, looter shooter, whatever you want to call it, the combat is unmatched, I think, in most cases. It just feels really good. I mean, you take God of War PS4's combat and you stick it in a live service game and you're playing as Avengers. Like, yeah, I'm gonna like
I'll
that.
agree. Okay, yeah, I'll backtrack. That and the fact that it's the Avengers are the two things this game has going for it. You're like, luckily they didn't try to turn it into a shooter. You're like, Kev's got an Uzi.
They did, like, years ago. That was supposed to happen.
Yeah, I saw that.
That got canned.
Good.
Which, I don't know, that could have been
I think the problem
interesting.
is outside, like, once you've moved past the Avengers and the beat 'em up, because you and I haven't gotten on to them quite a bit, because it's still just the same core gameplay. Like, they haven't given us a true goal to go after at the moment.
I play more often, like, especially recently I've been playing more often, but it is like I've talked about before. Like, it's just, I want to listen to a podcast and I want something to do, so I'll just go like power level someone. But like, especially now after this announcement of champion levels, like, here's something that I'm concerned about, and I'm interested what you guys will think about this. They didn't specify if experience that I have already gained on my level 50 characters post, like, playing with them post level 50, if that is going to be retroactively applied to champion levels once this update goes live. And if it's not going to, then why would I play this game until that update gets pushed?
Yeah.
Well,
That's
I
a
agree
great
with you on
point.
that one. I honestly doubt they're going to give you anything you've done now, but that's the issue that runs into a lot of games. I think a couple games Dan and I played. Back when I played Apex with Dan frequently. Once I hit the end of the Battle Pass, it was like, I have no reason to play this, Dan. I'm going to go play another Battle Pass game.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that's the problem, exactly what you're talking about. Like, if there's nothing to do until that patch rolls out, why would you play?
Like, they're actively, and I know it's only a week, and this is going to be irrelevant next week, but, like, I mean, with this game's track record, something like this could come out, and it'd be like, oh, months from now, we'll get that update. But, like, it's just, they are, by not saying anything on that point, they're, like, actively telling me not to play the game, which is, like...
Well, they have a bad tendency to just not talk. Like, they admitted that in the ambassador thing I was looking at.
to give them credit, and we'll roll into the other update, which is the updated version of the roadmap. Since they announced that roadmap, they have stuck to it, and they have consistently been doing things every week.
I will say I'm happy about that, because when that roadmap came out, I looked very scattered, like how far apart things were. But I theorized, I'm like, it's so that they can actually keep up with it. Like, right. That's why.
Like they're taking a little bit of the No Man's Sky approach. Like, you can criticize them for being quiet, but I think they've settled into a position now where they are purposefully not saying much and not overpromising, because they think that they can hit their targets, but they don't want to like say that in case they can't.
Right.
And I think that's smart, and they've delivered on it so far. The real test is going to be once we're past kind of the middling content, like just the events that we're in right now with the Tachyon Anomaly and Red Room Takeover and stuff.
Yeah.
Once they start talking about actual content like Black Panther, like some people are saying that's not coming until next year. I certainly hope not. But that's the mess that we're going to get into at some point. But
it's going to be next year. Well, don't get your hopes up.
It'll come out in 4 years. That's when we'll get Black Panther. We'll recycle these two events until then. But yeah, the champion system, I think it's fine. Like it's something that I feel like if it was included in the base game, I'd be like, yeah, it's a part of the game. But since it's being put in now, and it's like a point that they're making, and it's like, here's what you've been asking for. It's like, no. We've been asking for the Omega level threats. We've been asking for raids. We've been asking for
like,
things to
no
do.
Group thing. I think that's the biggest problem I have with Avengers right now, because I play games like this with friends. I do the thing you do. Like this morning, I listened to a bunch of podcasts and caught up on some Destiny stuff. But the big problem I have is if you want me to stay with your game, like stay long term, not drop off for 2 or 3 weeks at a time. 2 games that I still play: Final Fantasy XIV and Destiny. And the reason is not because the games are incredible. I could give you a list of problems with both. It's because every week I have someone to meet up with and play with. Like we have a set time every week that I do something in Destiny with a raid team of 6 people. Just like I have a set time on Final Fantasy that I meet up with people and I play Final Fantasy. So even if I don't play for the most of the week, I will be there for that event. You know what I'm saying? Like, so, and by Avengers not having that, like you and me, Dylan, not going, okay, so I got a raid on PC with Dylan on Fridays, and we're going to grab Dan, Houston, and Shank, and we're going to roll. We're left in this bind of like, there's nothing to get. There's no weekly thing for me to grab my buddies and be like, all right, so we're doing this on Fridays, Dylan. You and me meeting up at noon, running the Hive thing right now. You know, like we don't have it. We just don't have that thing.
Right. Mm-hmm. And it's such a strange, like Dan, when's the last time you played Avengers? Because I feel like you haven't touched it.
You remember when the beta came out?
Okay.
And there was the weekend. Yeah, that's when I played last.
Yeah. So like just as someone who like doesn't play it ever, it's weird to me that they come out with the champion system by itself. Like, if I were to tell you, like, instead of announcing the champion system right now, if I were to tell you that next week they're coming out with the first raid, they're coming out with this champion system, and they're coming out with an Omega level threat that is like a weekly group content, would that make you maybe more interested than just like, oh, you can grind more?
Oh yeah, because those two make me go, oh look, there's something new that I'm getting. Whereas as someone that doesn't play, I hear champion level, I go, okay, so I would just be playing the same thing I didn't really kind of want to play already, but you're making it rewarding for me to play it more. Like I don't have interest there. Like that does not make me go, you know what? I should put hundreds of hours into this so that I can get to the point where that will actually even matter, and then learn it doesn't really matter.
I think that goes back to the inherent problem with live service games in general. Most of their new content is structured around, I've already put 100 hours into it. So getting into these games sometimes is a little bit of a wall, because champion points are not going to make Dan show up in the game. It's not going to make Dan finish catching up. It might make me jump on with you on my Black Widow that is already capped, but that is it. Like, we're not doing anything.
There's like, the content isn't changing. They're just like, that's why it's a system that should have already been in there. And it's weird that they're like, I mean, there's not a whole ton of fanfare about this system. But like they're still being relatively quiet about it. But it's weird that they wouldn't just hold this back until they introduce actual content. Because there's there's no reason to play a character who is level and power capped right now. There's no reward for it, and the reward now is they're saying, oh, you'll get 2% stronger if you put like 30 more hours into this character. And it's like, what? I don't care. I'm just gonna get stronger so I can do the content I've already been doing for hours and hours, like slightly faster. No, I don't care. But speaking of like future content for this game, they did update the roadmap. And Benny, you were kind of making fun of it because the new image just basically says that the stuff that's already happened, it just says launched on it.
We did it!
We did it!
You all thought we were going to fail, but look, it says launched!
Which, like, fair enough. But
It's them going, look, we have proof. We have done things.
right?
I promise.
Yeah. Get back to me when the Black Panther part says launched, and it's not 4 years from now. But they did make some minor changes to it. They updated timings. So the next part, the Cosmic Cube event with Monica, the villain, that is officially June.
Okay.
So that is actually coming June. And then the other like tiny minor thing that they did is they added up through Black Panther. So in May it says outfits inspired by the Marvel Studios Avengers Endgame, and in June it also says
I love the new one. You digging the shaved head Hawkeye?
We're not going to talk about shaved head Hawkeye.
They came out, just so Dan and our chat are aware, they came out with the MCU inspired Hawkeye outfit, and they didn't give him the mohawk.
Yeah, the one thing everybody remembers that costume
That's like the only. I don't even know what else he wore. He wore black.
Yeah,
it's
a black
kind
outfit,
of a
and he's
Ronin
got
suit.
his shaved head from the game.
Yeah,
It's like, okay.
it's rough.
It's like when they did Maestro, and it's like, that feels like half-assed Maestro. What are you doing? Like,
But yeah, so this month and next month it says outfits for Avengers Endgame, and then the months after that, this is new. It says outfits inspired by the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So what everybody is assuming that means is we're getting outfits past June that are just general MCU. They're not based on Endgame specifically.
okay.
So it's like the marketplace is kind of the one thing that they're devoting consistent resources to. Like there is new content in the marketplace every week. And I give them points for, I still think $14 is a lot for a skin, but they absolutely could have charged more for the MCU skins, and they didn't. So I'll give them credit for that. But that's not a lot. Not a lot to say.
Yeah.
I am actually kind of surprised that Marvel has not done any free skins with their comics, like the whole Batman Fortnite skin thing right now. Because honestly, you mentioning these skins, I'm like, and the fact that you asked whether or not I would jump back in, if I had opened up, I'm going to use one of the most recent Captain Marvel comics. Is Captain Marvel in Avengers yet?
No.
No?
She has a leaked appearance.
Okay.
So she's coming at some point. Probably after Black Panther.
In my scenario, she's already out. Anyway, in the most recent one, they put her in a new costume, and she looked like she was working with Doctor Strange. Looked awesome. If I opened that comic, and then at the end, it was like, redeem this new Captain Marvel costume in Marvel Avengers, I would actually give it a shot. I think like stuff like that would make me go, I actually really liked that. Maybe that will be my access in, but because at first I was even thinking, I don't think they even promote that video game in any of their comics.
Well, they're probably not going to for a while. They haven't since it came out.
Yeah. That's like a larger problem with like comic book companies for some reason have this really weird resistance to like synergize their brands.
Yeah.
Like the fact that I go to an Avengers movie and don't see a trailer for the current Avengers comic before the movie plays, like that boggles the mind. So but yeah, that would be a cool like even if I doubt they would give you the outfit for free. But
even
like
if it was like a 7-day
discount.
trial or something.
Yeah,
or
like a trial or
discount.
something. That would work.
Yeah.
Like I think it's, and they have been doing this is the thing that the MCU outfits have been good for so far, and some of the leaked skins have started to look good, but recently they've been doing comic book inspired outfits, emphasis on inspired, because what they're doing, and it's so frustrating, is they refuse to model new outfits. They just recolor existing ones and slightly change things to kind of look like the comic book version of it. So, and it's so weird. Like some of the things they decide, like they put Superior Iron Man in it, and he looks just slightly off.
They all do. They all do. That's the
Yeah.
problem with the game in general, where they were like, let's make them look like the MCU guys, but not exactly.
But I'll
like
give
the
them credit.
MCU.
Like Hawkeye, the only thing wrong with Hawkeye's is his hair, which is weird. But that's the same thing with Widow. Black Widow's MCU outfit looks phenomenal, except for the hair. But it's also like, you know, it's fine. Like, I get it. I don't like. It doesn't seem like that big of a change to just make her hair longer and dye the ends of it white. But like there have been a couple more leaked ones. Like the Captain America one looks amazing. It looks great. The Hulk one looks fine, but like the Hulk in Endgame looks terrible anyway. So
Yeah, well,
But,
we're not
that's
having that
agreeable.
discussion right now. All right, let's move on to the next topic we have here, because I think we've done plenty of Avengers at this point. Is there anything else you need to add to the discussion?
no, it's just, you know, that's the news. It's kind of middling, and the takeaway point is that they're doing stuff, and it's gonna be a while before they fully recover, but at least they're sticking to their roadmap and they're updating it as time goes on.
Okay, awesome. All right, well, we're going to wrap up today's episode here. The other two pieces of news we had aren't going to be that. Actually, it's one piece of actual news that we've drummed up. We can talk about it for 2 seconds, but it's Escape from Tarkov plans to avoid doing metas and having hardcore gameplay. I wish more games would do this. Dan and I were talking about this. I'm actually, as much, people like to call me a meta slave. I'm the guy that will always fall into the right job, the right class, the right gun, everything to do exactly what will give me that advantage. I'm not good enough at these games to take the pea shooter and be like, check it out, I got you at 400 meters away. No, I'm the guy that goes, I can do pretty good when you tell me what the best stuff to use is. So I'm on board with the idea of there being no meta, and every gun could potentially be feasible, or every player could be feasible, and it's just learning the gameplay. The reason I put this in here is because I do play, not for a while now, but I have played Escape from Tarkov, and I love the game. And it always did fall down to that meta where they were like, this is the gun, this is the helmet, and you're good. So the idea that games may start going away from a meta, I'd love that. Stop focusing on your PvP competitive meta. The chances of you being the next Fortnite are slim to none. Can we just have some fun gameplay? I feel like every game for the longest time wanted to be the next Fortnite. And we had a few winners that got some traction, like Apex, Call of Duty's Warzone. But it's not... The amount of Battle Royale attempts does not equal out the amount of winners.
No, for sure. Are they doing, like, what are they doing as developers to not have a meta? Because that, like, are they just not, like, making balance changes to encourage stuff like that? Or, because the developer does not usually make the meta. That just happens.
Well, yeah, but if you just constantly do things that can counter other weapons, then you wouldn't technically have a meta.
Right.
Like, that's, I think, the big thing against a lot of these things. If you just constantly work around the meta, like, okay, so this gun will break this helmet, but then this helmet will break this gun. And so there's no, every game could easily just have a good rock, paper, scissors system of like, Dan, your stuff's great against Dylan, but my stuff beats Dylan, and Dan can beat me, but mine, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
And there are a lot of app games I play actually do a really good job with that, where they avoid doing a meta by having a nice rock, paper, scissors style gameplay going on. So
of
even
course,
though,
then it turns into a meta because they're like, but there's the bonus light dark stuff.
yeah,
Right.
exactly. But and I feel like that's what they're aiming for with this. I lost the article now because I should have just double checked exactly what they meant. But the idea of not having a meta was what I found interesting.
Yeah, the whole not having a meta thing, I feel like that's not applicable to most games. Like, I feel like in Escape from Tarkov, it's more possible because most of what you're balancing are weapons that everyone has. But a lot of games, it's really hard to break away from a meta. I'm going to use Apex as an example with their new Arenas mode that they came out with, where instead of the Battle Royale, it's just a 3v3, kind of one life per round kind of thing, kind of like CSGO. And every single match you'll see a Gibraltar, a Pathfinder, and a Bloodhound. Like, at least one of those is always going to be in the composition, and it's because that game, as well as other games, League of Legends, Destiny, like there are class skills, even Avengers, if they ever went into PvP, like there are innate skills that make it impossible to not have a meta. Games like Escape from Tarkov, where it's mostly around like the weapons and stuff like that, now that would be a good one to see move away from the meta, because Warzone has that problem where there are weapons that are in the meta, and it's very clear that the devs have control over that meta, because then they go, hey, we just did a big nerf to the one gun that's doing that, but we did a little buff to this one, so people are going to rotate through and they're just going to go to the new meta.
Based on that, what you said, what he's saying basically is there was a Q&A and the community asked for more, making the game easier to get into so you could just explore and do that kind of a thing if you want to. And he responded with, no, they don't want to make it easier. They want this to be a punishing game based upon your skill and your intellect to be able to play around other players and do this. And they despise metas, which normally come from unbalanced gameplay.
Yeah.
So he wants to keep it as perfectly balanced as possible.
Gotcha.
But there's always a counter to things.
Okay.
So,
I like that.
It's more of like the dev just really wants a super, super balanced game, which, I mean, that's kind of impossible. But, like,
There'll always be that one piece of armor that has less bullets that could break it than...
Well, the problem with the keeping it fully balanced is you shut off the potential of bringing in new things.
Yeah.
Because World of Warcraft ran into that, where they were like, we've got all our classes balanced. And people are like, oh, the new expansion, what's the new class? And they're like, we are not bringing you one, because then nothing's going to be balanced anymore. And it's by the time we fix it, we'll be bringing in a new one.
Well, that's what Final Fantasy has done. Like every new tank or a DPS or whatever we get is the one you gotta play. And by the time it's leveled out and all the classes are even again, they're like, and a new one's coming.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's interesting. I agree with the sentiment that, like, you know, not every game has to be completely about like the new thing, like keeping up with what's the best at any given moment. And like Dan, you were saying, like some games, it would work. Some games, it's like no, like the meta kind of is important, like keeping up with it, keeping the game alive. Like I know Overwatch does a lot of. In the competitive scene, they just lock out characters every so often from competitive just to keep it fresh and be like, okay, let's experiment with like what meta will come to rise if we remove Ana from the game for like a month.
Yeah.
Which honestly, I really like that model, because it makes people have to be creative of like, okay, well, if we removed that one and that person boosted this character, then how would we go about it a different direction that might be more creative than this other team? Like, I actually like that idea of locking some people out for certain seasons. I think that's an interesting way to do it.
All right, well, that's pretty much everything we got there, guys. That's this week's discussions as a whole. Stick around to the channel. We're going to bring you more discussions, more stuff. Thank you for being a part of the absolutely PlayStation and Steam Gamers family here. I am still working on our giveaways. It's pulled up on my computer. Gleam has changed their systems up, so I have to mess with it to figure out exactly how we're doing it. But we will begin our giveaways very soon with our weekly show. So I did not forget. That is not just a fun mention. It will come back. All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time right here at Absolutely PlayStation and Steam Gamers plus Dan.